Bennett Dunlop Ford is proud to support the Regina Pats as they battle for the 100th Memorial Cup. We're driving change.
Bob Turner, after winning 5 straight Stanley Cups with Montreal, becomes Regina's most successful hockey player. But once a Pat, always a Pat. In 1965, at age 30, Turner gets the call to become head coach of Regina's junior team. He leads them to another Memorial Cup appearance in 1969. But again, the Pats are no match for their Eastern rivals. The years have turned to decades, and National Hockey glory has simply become a distant memory. By 1971, thanks in part to the efforts of Pat's general manager Del Wilson, a reinvigorated Western Canada Hockey League has become a huge success in the Prairie provinces. And now, teams in British Columbia want to join in. When the Abbott Cup trophy is transferred to the Junior Tier 2 ranks, the 12 WCHL teams vie for a brand new trophy called the President's Cup. In Regina, manager Wilson and coach Bob Turner see a sudden influx of young rookie talent.
I was born in a little town just south of Regina, about 40 miles, little town about 100 and some people, Lang, Saskatchewan. I was asked by the Pats if I played hockey first, which was kind of comical as it turned out what happened with my career. But they signed my brother in 1971. He had played for the Waving Red Wings, and the Pats were moving back into the Western Hockey League, and they decided to sign my brother. He was a 20-year-old, and I was, I think, 16, and they just asked, just politely, I think, just to make talk, if I had played hockey also.
So he just had his own way of playing. He just loved to skate. He loved to shoot.
Dennis was very skilled offensive hockey player. Could shoot the puck very accurately, very hard.
Sabi to me was the best junior player I ever saw. I mean, he was unbelievable.
I was born in Regina, but I was actually raised in Moose Jaw. Played most of my minor hockey over in Moose Jaw.
Eddie's a very enthusiastic guy. He's driven. Eddie was a little small in stature, but certainly made up for it in the size of his heart.
Eddie and I were roommates for a year, as a matter of fact, and we got along great. Of all the guys, I think Eddie was older than his years in many ways. You know, he had a mission. He knew what he was going to do.
At that time, Eddie Stanowski and I basically were battling for the position, with the Regina Pats, and I ended up getting traded to Swift Current.
He saved our butts a lot. Like we scored a lot of goals, and he saved a lot of goals. So in other words, we maybe sometimes didn't come back, but we thought we had Eddie back there, so we didn't have to come back as fast.
Well, I was born in Rocky Mountain House, Alberta.
Greg Jolly, yeah, funny guy. He'd be passing me as we're going down offense because he wanted the puck.
Just an extremely talented, gifted player. And he's like the rest of us. He's just a knucklehead. He was so talented.
It was a pleasure being a goaltender when Greg Jolly was on the ice playing for you. He could control the game. He had the skill that when he got the puck, it was almost impossible to strip it off him.
I was born in Regina. I grew up on a farm 2 miles north of the city, right by the Wayscales on Highway 11 towards Saskatoon. I went through kind of a back door a little bit. The very first WHL camp I went to was in Estevan, and I actually made the team down there, only to find out that I was actually on the Pats list, and they had spelt my name wrong.
With Kim, you had a solid guy who was always there and blocked lots of shots. Again, could move the puck, and was very confident.
I don't think anybody worked harder than Mac. He came to the rink every night and gave it his best, and you knew what you're going to get out of him day in and day out.
As the summer of 1971 winds down, Coach Turner receives an opportunity he just can't pass up.
The Regina Pats announced that Bob Turner has resigned as coach in order to take a full-time scouting position with the California Golden Seals, an organization he's been connected with for the past 2 years.
Del Wilson announced that former New York Ranger and California Golden Seal star Earl Ingerfeld has signed to coach the Pats for the 1971-72 season.
You know, I was fortunate enough my first year with the Regina Pats, I had Earl Ingerfeld, just finished a great 15 or 16 year career, and he had that touch. He has a lot of class, and he just showed me that, you know, about being a pro hockey player, what you had to do and everything.
To me, he was one of the best coaches I ever had, because he kind of understood, having been a player himself. My first year in Regina, we had 13 rookies, and he somehow made us feel like, you know, like grown men.
The ink barely has enough time to dry on Coach Ingerfeld's contract before the 1971-72 season begins. During preseason, though, another rookie player emerges.
When Del Wilson came to Moose Jaw and he said, "We want you to come and play for the Pats," he said, "Well, why don't you come back down on Friday? We're playing the Swift Current Broncos. You can dress for the game." I got in a fight, and I beat the crap out of some guy. And some other guy said, "You can't do that to my buddy." And I beat the crap out of him. And the third guy said, "I might as well throw my hat in the ring." And guess what happened to him?
I was considered a big guy. He was considered huge. I was like 6'2", 180. He pushed 200 plus, and Clark was the sleeping giant. And he'd go up and down his wing. Great hockey player, played great. He'd score goals, but the worst thing you could do is wake him up.
The first year was a really good year, because that was the year that, you know, Clark and Dennis and Eddie Staniowski and Glenn Burden and Robbie Laird and Rick Urich, and all of us came that year.
I'll never forget our rookie year when we had 6 veterans and 13 rookies, and they wanted to have the rookie hazing. They said, "Well, Friday afternoon is the rookie hazing," and we're like, we look at each other and go, "Well, you're not doing anything to us unless we let you do something to us, because there's 13 of us and 6 or 7 of you."
It was a family. We already started a family. When you live on we call it the Iron Lung, the bus, you travel a lot of miles on a bus. You really do become close. We ended up in first place. We all got kind of a little bit arrogant, but you got to have that to be a little bit more confident.
People always have to understand, you don't build a championship team in 1 year. And most of those players, their first year, Earl Ingerfeld was the coach, went right to the league final, lost out in overtime, with really a predominant team of 17-year-olds.
With just a hint more experience, I think we probably would have gone to the Memorial Cup that year.
By 1972, the Memorial Cup Championship makes a crucial change. With a vast array of junior teams all over Canada, the format becomes a round robin between 3 teams: the Western Canadian champion, the Ontario champion, and the Quebec champion. All 3 compete in a predetermined host city. Not long after the Cornwall Royals become Memorial Cup champions under this new format, Regina Pats coach Ingerfeld gets an opportunity of his own to become a scout for the New York Islanders. This leaves room for the return of an old fan favorite.
2 names synonymous with junior hockey in Regina, Bob Turner and Del Wilson, are back together, and the Regina Pats will once again be under the direction of the dynamic duo.
Bob Turner. The one thing about Bob, he believed in hard work, and he treated everybody the same. Make no mistake. If you missed curfew, it didn't matter who you were, you weren't playing the next game, period.
We didn't like him a lot of times because he punished us many times in practice, of which I hated in the first place. Everybody knew he was a hard-nosed guy, disciplinarian and everything, but I look back and he taught me a lot of great things. And
one of the things that he did do, I think, is that he worked us very hard, and I think he got us very disciplined. I think that, you know, when you didn't work hard for Bob, you paid the price.
Bob was, you know, throwback of the old days. He was, you know, he could be getting in your grill, give it to you 1 minute, and the next minute he'd be hugging you and crying on your shoulder. You know, he was an emotional guy.
And he coached to win, and he expected his players to come to the rink to play, work hard in practice, and prepare for the games, and work hard in the game, and you'll be successful.
The second year, Bob Turner was the first year coach. I think we were 1-16 the second year after the first 17 games. I still remember Del Wilson coming in the dressing room and telling us that the coach wasn't going to leave. So if we didn't start playing better, there'd be some players leaving.
Well, we ended up in third place, got beat 4 straight in the playoffs, right off the bat. And we're going, wow, you know, all of a sudden you had to take a look in the mirror and, you know, do a check, you know, a character check about, you know, what's happening here. And we just took it for granted that, you know, we were good and maybe a little bit too arrogant and a little bit too confident.
We got beat by the Bombers and got sent home with our tails between our legs. And the following year, you know, I think it was that was a tremendous wake-up call for our team.
As the 1973-74 season is set to begin, the Pats star forward makes history, becoming Regina's first $1 million hockey player.
The Cincinnati expansion franchise in the World Hockey Association announced the signing of Denis Sobchak to a 10-year contract, estimated at $1 million.
So all of a sudden there was that, you know, that media attention on me about, first of all, I was a pro playing in an amateur game because junior was still amateur, and a bit of the story was that when the Cincinnati Stingers signed me, they wanted me to go play pro that year, and they were going to start paying me my lucrative contract, and I had a commitment to the Pats. And you know, I didn't help myself. You know, the guys, I mean, I put dollar signs on my gloves. I mean, oh, come on. I mean, is that not just like feeding the piranhas with meat, you know, going, oh boy, here now we can really go after him. I know I ran a few games that Turner, he benched me, you know, and they made a big thing of it in the papers about, you know, this guy who's supposed to be, and it hurt, but it hurt in a good way.
When Del Wilson and friends took over the Regina Pats 4 years ago, Wilson announced it would take 3 to 4 years to build a Memorial Cup contender. On paper, this is indeed the Pats' year. The talent is there, and so is the incentive.
We really played that year almost with 3 defensemen. You know, our rookies, Dave Thomas, Mike Wachowski, they didn't see a lot of ice time. Greg Jolly, Mike Krasny, and myself played 40, 45 minutes a game all year long.
A berth in the Memorial Cup in Calgary next spring is the Pats' ultimate goal. But there's another motivating factor. A trip to Sweden in December awaits those players who perform well.
At Christmas time, instead of taking 2 or 3 weeks off, Del and Bob got us involved in a tournament over in Sweden, a tournament called the Ahern Cup. Instead of taking 2 weeks off, we now spent 2 weeks playing, not only in the tournament, but playing some exhibition games both in Sweden and Finland.
Our film crew took off right after Christmas. Their first stop, Stockholm, Sweden, site of the Ahern Cup game.
We were fortunate enough, some of our parents actually went over with us too, and I remember we were, the first hotel we went into wasn't in a very good area of town. And Del and Bob and them went to the managers of the tournament, said, we can't stay here, this isn't for us. So they moved us into a Holiday Inn, which hadn't even opened yet. It was a brand new facility. And they didn't have enough staff there, so I remember our mums used to cook the meals for us. They used to go into the kitchen, and they gave us the run of the kitchen.
The Regina Pats Juniors were Canada's entry in this international tournament, but the boys found it rather heavy going, playing against the older, more experienced Europeans.
Truly, we got our butts kicked there and back over there. We played the national teams. We lost to a team from Sweden 16-1. You know, we played the Russians. We lost them, I think it was like 7-2.
We were by ourselves. We would play teams and maybe get beat 10-1 and get run over by these guys. They're all 30 years old, the best hockey players in Finland, Sweden, you know, Czechoslovakia.
Some of the games were outdoor rinks. I remember we played some of them on like a soccer pitch. Well, we had to walk. It felt like miles walk from the dressing room just to get out to the ice surface and play. And it would be snowing, and they had to stop a couple times during the period to shovel off the snow so we could see the puck.
We were playing against professional teams, but it really brought the team together, even closer than we had been before we went. And when we came back from spending those 10, 12 days together, eating together, staying in the same hotel, going through some pretty one-sided games where we didn't win, we learned a lot about ourselves. We learned even more about each other.
I think being away from home and during the holiday season and so you're relying on other people, and we became a family over there, because we had to rely on each other. There wasn't anybody else. It was sort of the us against the world mentality.
When you get your butts kicked, you had to look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm not doing my job, or I got to do it better.
I mean, it was really hard hockey. I mean, as I said, kids playing against men. We came back from that tournament as if we had never taken a day off.
That whole experience helped cement our team. When we came back from there, we were bonded, and we were going to win no matter what.
The Regina Pats emerged from the regular schedule with the best record in the 12-team circuit. Included in their record were some outstanding away-from-home performances, but few could be compared to the showing in Saskatoon. The Pats rode the sensational goaltending of Eddie Stanowski and then turned it on for a 5-2 victory over the Blades to win the Eastern Division semifinal. The victory moved them into the division shootout against the rugged Swift Current Broncos.
The Swift Current team, they had a good hockey club, and they had built, much like Regina, they had some pretty good hockey players.
Playing against the Pats, especially in the old stadium in those days, it was a lot of fun. I can remember Clark Gillies coming down the wing and letting the big slap shots go.
We were playing against Swift Current. They had a great team, and they come into our exhibition stadium, and they beat us the first game at home. And we're going, okay, well, let's go back at it. The second game, they had us 5-1 after the second period.
I wouldn't say that we were worried, but it was a wake-up call.
We were down 6-1 going into the third period, and we came back and beat them that game. And to live through that was amazing.
I think Dennis scored a hat trick, and that was kind of a turning point. We decided that we're going to win this thing. We better start playing like we can.
Anyway, we won the series. That's all we cared about. They were a formidable foe. I mean, that was a good team.
Well, the final series for the Western Canada Hockey League Championship was against Calgary, the Centennials, of course, and they had a pretty good hockey club too.
And they were favored to beat us in the league final, and we beat them 4 straight.
The Regina Pats left for Calgary this morning, just 3 wins away from their first Memorial Cup championship since 1930. The Pats, along with the St. Catharines Blackhawks and the Quebec City Remparts, will lift off the 3-team battle for the Canadian Junior Hockey Championship.
We got in town. We were staying at the same hotel as St. Catharines and the Quebec Remparts. St. Catharines truly, and I'm sure if you talk to any of the guys, they strutted around the hotel like they owned it. We played them the first game.
The opening face-off, the puck got dumped in the corner on my right, and they were going to try and set it up, show how physical they could be, and they picked the wrong guy. Their tough guy ran Robbie Laird in the corner, just on my right. Robbie is one of the toughest players who ever played junior hockey in Canada.
And I mean, Rob was 5'5", 145 pounds soaking wet. But pound for pound, one of the toughest kids I've ever had the pleasure of playing with.
Robbie Laird beat the beans out of this guy. I said, oh my God, how could this little guy be so tough?
I believe we shut them out, if I'm not mistaken, and Jolly got 2 goals. And it was they were a very tough team. And Clarky had some fights in that game, and where he set the tone, and we just played a good, solid game. We played the Quebec Remparts our second game, and they beat us. They outskated us, and they showed us that, if you're going to win the Memorial Cup, you got to be at your best. And so it was an eye-opener, and we were very fortunate. It was a round-robin, goals for, goals against. And we were lucky enough that we got into the finals. We thought we were the better team because we had beaten St. Catharines, and Quebec had just beaten us. And then we had to play the Remparts again.
You got owners, scouts, general managers, coaches, from all the teams in the NHL are there, and you're on the biggest stage in junior hockey, and this could make or break, where you get picked in the draft.
People don't know this, but they retired my number during the season. It was March 30th, I can tell you that. I have a little card, and the Pats retired my number. That was very nice, very nice. And I remember them saying, let's hope it's May 12th.
When the Pat season terminates, be it as late as May 12th, sweater number 14 will be retired in a gesture of tribute to Dennis Sobchuk.
Into a game and you're totally prepared. You get out there and you just come out flat. Who knows?
First period, we started off sluggish. They got a couple of soft ones on us, and we were down 3-0 rather quickly. We scored one near the end of the period to make it 3-1.
I was not playing the best game of my career, that's for sure. I'd let in 3 goals in that first period, and they were questionable. And Bob was not happy. You could see it when he came in the dressing room. We expected we were going to get an earful because he was passionate, and he would let the team know writ large, all of us, or individually, what our shortcomings were. And it looked like we were going to get it both barrels.
He would have come in and gone up one side and down the other of just about each and every guy, but that's the way it was.
And we came into the dressing room in between periods, and we were kind of waiting for Bob to come in and let us have it. And I think Sobby got up and met with Bob in the hallway before he came into the room.
You're in your final game. I don't think you should need a pep talk, And I get a little choked up because Bob come in and he was gonna give a speech, And I just told Bob, we don't need to be pep talk. We'll do it. Period.
Dennis actually came into the room, and we just had a chat about how bad we wanted to win this thing and how far we'd come, and we couldn't let this slip through our hands.
He didn't say a whole lot. Sobby can, if we were sitting here, Sobby could talk for half an hour and then ask you what the question was, because that's how Sobby is. At that point, we're down 3-1. There wasn't a lot to be said. We needed to go out and play hockey, plain and simple.
There was so much talent in that room that no matter what anybody else would have said, it really ultimately came down to us realizing that we had to, put forth the talent that we had.
Dennis stood up, told everybody in the dressing room, we're going to win this game, and I'm going to get you 3 goals.
You try never to watch the clock, but once you get up a couple goals, you're hoping the clock hits 0 as quick as possible.
When that final buzzer goes, and it's unbelievable feeling to know that, wow, you've won a championship.
You're proud, you're happy, you're relieved.
I still remember sitting in the hotel in Calgary, and it would probably be about 6:30 in the morning. And they delivered the morning newspaper, and it had our pictures on the front page, and there was a couple bundles of them come into the hotel, and we took both bundles and went back up to whatever floor we were on, the 8th or 10th or whatever, and we were all sitting out in the hallway staring at this picture at like 6:30 in the morning or 7 in the morning. We hadn't been to bed yet.
There's 2 things that have happened. You've just won the Memorial Cup, and you are no longer going to be together.
Our first year together in 1971, and we got to the finals, it was like, yeah, we should, why not win the Memorial Cup? No one ever told us that it's one of the hardest cups ever to win, because you really only get 3 years. And then number two year, and then all of a sudden we're going, gosh, we won it. And I always remember my comment at the banquet about what took them 44 years. It was 1930 before they won it before. And I was always wondering, because we always thought we could win it every year.
So it really was pretty neat. and something I'll never forget. And it's, nicely we were done it with a bunch of great guys, and we worked hard, and we'd like to say that it was well deserved.
When we're together, we're not, butcher, baker, candlestick maker, Hall of Famer, whatever you want to call it. We're teammates. It doesn't matter what happened afterwards. It's what happened during that really makes the most, has the most meaning to all of us.
It's life-changing. It's hard to describe, but it's certainly a different bond that holds that whole group together.
I remember the excitement when the Pats won the Memorial Cup. They had a parade in Regina. It was a huge to-do.
We have pictures in the Leader Post archives of what it was like when the Pats got back. It was just mayhem at the airport, and everybody's wearing these checkered suits and these big collars. And I've bugged Dennis Sobchuk many times about his suit. It was just, it looked like a test pattern.
I still get kidded because there's some artifacts around that some of the reporters will, I probably had that #1 worst suit that you could wear.
It was phenomenal to see the support that we got here locally from the people. At the time, I was 17 at the time. You're thinking, oh, that was great. Maybe we can win a couple more. And then you realize as you get older what a feat it is to actually get that far. And it's because of the small window you have with junior hockey. It's quite the feat to win that thing.
The easiest part of doing this reunion is you send out an email, you tell them the date, and they all show up.
Everybody always says with a great knitted team that you pick it up from the day that you left it.
When we get together, it's like the day we walk in the dressing room after winning the Memorial Cup. We're all young men again, all young warriors, and that brotherhood is real. It's still there. The stories just get better.
It's funny, it's just really good to catch up because, we only played together, think about it, for 3 years, and yet we remain friends for life.
It's a bond that'll never be broken, I don't think. We stay in touch still, and looking forward to the next reunion.
We ended up, Drew Callender's brother-in-law, he's got a place out by White City, Pilot Butte, and he was kind enough to let us use that for the night. We went out there, we did a supper, we sat around the campfire and rehashed stories from when we played.
We probably sat there for 3 or 4 hours just telling stories and just memories of those days and how much fun we had, and that was very, very important for all of us.
Bennett Dunlop Ford is proud to support the Regina Pats as they battle for the 100th Memorial Cup. We're driving change.